What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're taking a quick look at the Rosecraft Blades Nolichucky Jack. That is model RCT011. I paired mine with a slip from the homie Brandon over at Everyday Adventure Co. If you're looking for leather work, definitely check him out. He does some awesome work. I'll leave a link to his website in the description. But I paired it with this knife because one, it's nearly a perfect fit. You can see the end of that knife and right as the cut of that leather is terminating, so almost a perfect match there, meaning that you're getting full coverage and full protection of the knife while still having plenty of access. If you don't want to pinch the edges to slide it out, which you definitely can do, you can just pinch the knife itself and pull it right out of that slip, which is nice. The coloration of this camo also matches these covers extremely well, and I love finding slip and knife pairings that just work really well together, so I thought it would be fun to show this one off. But we're gonna get it out of the slip. If you've never seen the Nolichucky Jack before, definitely in for a treat because I find this to be one of the best looking models in the Rosecraft lineup. That goes both for the pattern itself as well as these covers, which I find to be stunning. Now, I believe these ones may be going in the vault soon if I'm remembering correctly. They're definitely sold out on the Rosecraft site, but you can still get them on traditionalpocketknives.com for $62. So that's what I'm going to be linking to in the description. Not an affiliate link, although Austin is the homie. Definitely love supporting his site, but most importantly, they have these in stock. So first off is the covers. They call this the vintage moss brown bone, and it is a smooth bone, so no texturing on there. But the imperfection in the bone gives this so much character. You can see those darker spots where the dye just saturated a little bit better. And Rosecraft, one area where I think they really excel is in the saturation of their dyes on the bone. Always do a really excellent job. We get these great dark colorways throughout these covers, especially up near that bolster where it gets super dark on my show side. But you also have these lighter areas down here by the blade, and it just gives it so much character, makes it very unique. Each one I've seen of these is a little bit different, but have yet to see a bad looking example so far. If we flip over to the pal side, you can see some of that variation where it looks pretty different from my show side. It almost has kind of a wood grain look to it on this side, but also really, really good looking. Now, the moss is a great descriptor in that vintage moss brown bone. I'd say the brown is a little bit off. I think this looks more green to me, but whatever you want to call it, I care more about how it looks, and I think it looks great. Now, in terms of the pattern, this is based off of a standard Jack IXL pattern that they pulled out and kind of made it their own. Really, really great looking pattern in my opinion. Of course, before we open it, we'll talk about that fit and finish, which isn't something you really have to worry about with Rosecraft. Their execution is almost always flawless, and when it's not, they do a really good job of QCing. So anything that doesn't meet those QC standards ends up in the seconds pile. But as always, they did a really great job on these. You can see those covers also. Already mentioned the saturation on the die looks great. We have this stainless steel rosebud shield, which kind of reminds me of a Federal shield, a little bit different than the Federal shield though, but I'm a big fan of the Federal shield, so I like the shape of this rosebud shield overall. Have some fluting on the bolster. Those are integral bolsters that, again, seamless transition up to those bolsters. Nickel silver pins, again, completely flush on both sides of these covers, so really well executed. No gapping, of course, on the spine of this knife between the liners and that spring, which is also a stainless steel spring. Just really flawlessly executed all the way around. Centering is also right down the center. Actually, I'd say maybe favoring the pal side just a hair. I hadn't actually noticed that before, but as I'm looking at it from this angle, it's just a hair off. It's so close to center that, like I said, I haven't even noticed it, and so definitely not creating any rubbing or anything like that, but just a hair to that pal side, but not bad whatsoever. Overall, the fit and finish on this is excellent. Same with the walk and talk. Kind of a lighter pull for my Rosecrafts. I'd say at about a 6. Sometimes they're a 6, sometimes they can be up to a 7. Maybe not the lightest I've had from them, but a little bit on the lighter side, but still I'd say a medium to heavy pull at that 6. Long pull on the deployment, not super pinchable because Andy Armstrong obviously loves a swedge on the blade, and so that swedge keeps you from pinching up at that tip and pulling on it, but you can get the meat of your finger into that long pull and pinch it a little bit further back if you'd like. But really nice access to that. Again, about a 6 on the pull. I'm gonna actually stop talking so we can hear the talk on this one. This one is really talky, super snappy, and do all 3 positions, and so just really great acoustics across the board. I'm gonna open it, I'm gonna close it, and then I'll open it back up once more so we can hear all those. Also pay attention to how it just kind of snaps into that half stop and that fully deployed position as well. So really nice talk on that one. Like I said, does have a stop pin in here, so you may be able to hear the difference between just a straight tang snapping to the back spring and it hitting the stop pin. But that is going to preserve the longevity of your edge in the long run, because sometimes that tang will wear down and the edge might start smacking on that back spring. Not something you're going to notice very early on. Now, I do prefer the acoustics a little bit without the stop pin, but this one still sounds excellent. So no real problem with that. You can see the springs are still completely flush in this fully deployed position. One thing that I like is how snappy that is. Sometimes you get this kind of lazy half stop here, and I have no worries about leaving my hand here while I'm pushing into that half stop, which can happen with some knives. If you get that lazy half stop, sometimes you can push right past it and close it on your fingers. And so no matter when you're closing it, you want to move your fingers out of the way. With this one, I really don't have that same worry. This is also a larger slip joint, which I like a lot. 7 inches overall. We have 4 inches in the closed positions, meaning we get 4 inches on our handle. Able to put all 4 fingers around there, no problem. Great ergos on that. One area where I think maybe they can improve the ergos just a little bit is if this had jigged bone instead of smooth bone. Smooth bone tends to be a little bit slippery, and that's definitely the case here, but feels great in the hand, and I honestly prefer it with the smooth bone because I think it looks a lot better than these covers would look with jigged bone. I do like jigged bone, but time and place, and I think this one really want to see the texturing of that bone show through, so I'm glad it doesn't actually have the jigging there. 3 inches on the blade, really even dimensions across the board. 7 inches overall, 4 inches on the handle, 3 inches even on the blade. Now we do have the tang here, meaning our cutting edge is slightly smaller, which is going to be great with people with those blade length restrictions because usually they're only measuring that cutting edge. Already mentioned the swedge up top. Looks great on the spear point. I love a spear point style blade, especially on slip joints. I think they just go with slip joints really well, and so love a spear point style blade. D2 on the steel, full flat grind here. Again, we have that long pull up at the top. One thing that I like that they started doing is we do have the stamped tang as well. So as case is moving away from stamped tangs to etched tangs, they're kind of more moving towards it, at least for the Rosecraft stamp. And I hope more companies do adopt that, and even case, I hope they go back to it because the stamp just has so much more longevity. I think it looks better, it has a more premium feel, but most importantly has some longevity with some knives that can be pretty historic. If we're still looking at old Rosecraft blades in 30 years, you want that stamp over the etch. Now going on to the PAL side, we do have etching for the maker's mark, the D2 steel, and that model number RCT011. Would love to see that stamped as well, but have to start somewhere, so happy to see that stamped on at least the logo there. Great looking knife, weighs in at only 3 ounces, so pretty good weight there, especially with these bone covers, which are pretty thin. That definitely keeps the thickness of the handle down a little bit, also keeps the weight down a little bit with these ultra thin bone covers, and that can be a little bit hard to do. Sometimes you see those just a little bit thicker, so that if they're going to be putting something like jigging in there, I think you would have a lot of cracking. If you tried to jig something this thin, you just have to add a little bit more bulk to that handle. You can see it's there a little bit at the end, so it does kick out a little bit, and that keeps you from sliding backwards on the knife, both the handle kicking down and then the covers themselves kicking outwards. It just kind of widens it up, keeps you from sliding back any further on the knife. But overall, a huge fan of this knife. Like I said, I think it's one of the best looking knives in their collection. I think the pattern is great. This is a borrowed and repurposed pattern from the old IXL catalogs, and so great pull from the bolt because this is a beautiful knife overall. Would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the comments. If you picked this one up, what your thoughts have been on it long term. This one is a little bit of a more recent pickup. I didn't get it right when it dropped, but it has been out for a while at this point. But again, would love to hear your thoughts either way in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, consider liking, commenting, subscribing, joining the channel as a member. Of course, they all help the channel out a ton. And as always, I hope you have a great one. Take care.